Hi, and welcome back to our This Is How We Grow personal growth group. I am Dr. Christina Hibbert, or Christy as many of you know me, and I'm really excited to talk about our lesson number 2 today on fall and patience. But before we get to the lesson, I just want to say it's been wonderful these past few weeks getting this group going. So many people have joined up for the emails, have been watching the videos, and sharing them with friends and family. We've had great discussion online. I've received several wonderful emails from people around the world, really, that are inspiring other people to grow with them. I've also received some great comments through the blog posts and on the video posts, as well as in our Facebook group, which has been really excellent. We've had fabulous conversation on there as people get to know each other, inspire each other, share ideas, and work through the things that we're all growing on. So if you haven't had a chance to get on Facebook yet and you would like to, please send me a request and I'll add you to the group. It's really simple. And keep the conversations coming. Keep the correspondence open. Let's continue to work together to talk about things and to share as we grow together. That's the whole point of this group. Now, before we get started on our lesson this week, I wanted to just touch base a little bit on what we were supposed to be working on for last time. It's important for us every session to check in a little bit on how we're doing, on the things that we were asked to work on last time, and are we really working on those things, or do we need to maybe do a little better with that? That's the whole point of the group, is to continually push us to grow and to take things a step further and to just be the best that we can be. So to remind you, last time we talked a little bit about the seasons of growth, and there were a few different assignments that I handed out. First of all, I asked you to think about, what does personal growth look like to you? And that's something I want you to keep thinking about as we move forward in the group. It's kind of a definition that I want you to keep in mind, because as long as you understand what personal growth means to you, you can know what you're looking for and really work on it and achieve the results you want to achieve. That's really why we're here. Second, I asked you to kind of identify what season you're in. Now, some people have had a really easy time with this and others have had a harder time. Some people know right away, I am in a season of fall or winter or spring or summer. And they're able to identify that quickly, and others have had some questions. For instance, some people have asked, well, do I have to pick a season and then stay in it? I'm not really sure which season I'm in. Sometimes it feels like I'm in more seasons than one all at the same time. And I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about that. Sometimes we are in maybe one main season, but we feel all the seasons kind of throughout the day or throughout the week or throughout the weeks. For instance, last week, I was feeling a lot of winter. Even though I feel like I'm coming into a summertime of life, I definitely woke up feeling just out of it, tired, grumpy, cranky, almost depressed. And luckily, knowing the lessons of the seasons is what helps, because I was able to tell myself, you're not all of a sudden depressed or in a winter. You're just having some wintry days. And the truth is, we all have some wintry days, don't we? It's very common for us to be even in the middle of summer and wake up and just have a not so good day. So winters can come in the middle of summer. Summery days can show up in the middle of winter. You might be feeling really low for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden you have, a really great day. Or, we can have bits of every kind of season throughout a day, throughout a week, especially when we're talking about our level of sleep deprivation. If you're really tired, you're going to feel a little bit more moody, and a lot more of the seasons are going to appear in your day or week. And hormones is a biggie too, especially for women, that can really make a difference and make you wake up feeling like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was in spring and now I'm completely in fall and winter again. So the important point with deciding what season you're in is not to pick one and stick with it. I mean, after all, the seasons change and we grow, and that's the point. But to be mindful of where you are. Be mindful of what's going on with you, what's really happening, to check in with yourself, to be able to say, I feel like I'm kind of in a fall because I'm in a season of change in my life, yet I have a lot of summery days or I have a lot of wintry days. That's okay. Just be mindful and use the lessons that we learn about the seasons to help you through those times, like I did with reminding myself that just because we have a wintry day doesn't mean our whole life is a winter all of a sudden. Okay, I hope that helps a little bit. I hope that makes a little bit more sense, because we've had a few questions about that. I also asked you to get real with seeing your strengths and weaknesses. I actually just posted this week on 5 ways to get real and to be authentic. So if you haven't seen that, you might check that out on my website. And there's also the post that I did about strengths and weaknesses. So if you haven't done that yet, you can go check that out. And that might help you to identify strengths and weaknesses, because as I say, if you want to become something, you got to see where you are first, or I say you've got to see it to be it, right? So that's our way of checking in with where we are before we try to move forward and make growth. I also asked you to start dreaming a little, to envision what you want at the end of this session, these sessions, at the end of this 9-month period that we're going to be spending together. What do you want for yourself? What do you dream of becoming? And I asked you to even dream yourself to sleep a little bit, to help you envision the things that you want for your future, and then to set goals. That was kind of the final thing I asked for, to write down your goals. So if you haven't written down your goals yet, you might want to do that immediately, because it really helps you to know what you're working toward, what you're looking forward to, what you're trying to do in order to continue to move through these lessons more effectively and get the most growth possible out of the things that we're trying to do here. Okay? So that is our summary from last time, and we're going to kind of check in every time, because again, I don't want to just give you the assignments and then have them sit there forever and have you guys forget to do them. I know how that goes. I can be the same way. Sometimes it's only when I'm preparing for these lessons that I remind myself, oh yeah, I was going to work on that thing. So it's okay. There's no judgment here and no grade, but you need to be checking in with yourself. You're the one that sort of can assess your progress as you go, and that's why you need to be aware of what's going on and checking in with yourself as regularly as possible. All right? Okay, so let's get into our lesson today. Today we are going to focus on fall and patience. Now, first I wanted to talk a little bit about fall. Fall to me is a season of change. It can be unwanted change, unexpected change, change that comes without you asking for it, and maybe even, change that you really, really just would like to go away. Or it can be expected change that you planned for, that you wanted, that you prepared for. Either way, change is tough, isn't it? In fact, that's my first question for you. Why is change so hard? That is actually the biggest question I think I get as a psychologist across the board, is why is change so difficult? Think about that for yourself for a minute. I asked this in my group last week, and they had some pretty good answers, and so I thought I'd share a few with you. So some of the things that some of my group members said were, change is difficult because I like where I am. Sometimes we do. We know we need to change. We know that we have something that needs to be worked on, yet we really like where we are and who we are at the time. So it's hard to really want to put forth the effort because maybe we're not ready yet, or we're not quite motivated enough to make the change that we need to make. Someone else said, change is hard because I want to know what to do next, and I have a fear of the unknown. So sometimes we know what we want to do and we know the change we need to make, but we're just really unsure of the outcome. And when we make change, it leads to other changes. It changes our relationships or other things in our life. So that can be scary for a lot of us. And fear of the unknown is a big reason why change can be hard. Another person said, I have a hard time seeing the steps. So I want to make change, but I just really don't always know how to do that. And isn't that just the case for most of us? Sometimes we just really don't know how. And finally, someone said, I have preconceived ideas of the end result. I like to have things figured out. And when it doesn't work that way, sometimes it can be hard. So we think we know how it's going to work out. We think we've got the end result all figured. And then all of a sudden, we're moving along and it's not looking like what we wanted. And we like to have control. So that can be really difficult too. So think about it for you. Why is change so difficult from your point of view? I have my own thoughts on this. I've given it a lot of thought because so many people have asked me about this over the years. And I think change is difficult mostly because, number one, we don't understand the nature of change. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute and explain a model that can help us understand change a little bit better. I think we don't really understand how change works and how much time and effort it takes to make a change. And I think number two, change is hard because we don't know how to do it. One of my group members said something similar, and I agree. I think that's one of the biggest problems that I see anyway, is that people want to change, but we just don't know the right way. We don't know the how. And I'm a biggie on how. That's my favorite question word is how, because sometimes we know why we need to do it. We might even know what to do, but how is a bigger question. It's much more difficult. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to leave you with some hows for how to change and do so patiently. Now, that's where patience comes in. So I picked patience, all this happened organically. I picked patience in 2007 for my yearly theme at the beginning of the year, which I do every January. I pick one theme and then I work on it all year. And I could never have guessed how much patience I would need when I picked that theme. That ended up being my year of the biggest changes in my life, and most of them unplanned for, definitely, and some unwanted too. Very, very hard year. My hardest year, one of my hardest years by far. The following year wasn't so easy either, I must say. But anyway, I wrote about this in my book because when I went to look back and started gathering together my whole story of all these experiences I've been through to write this book, I started to see that organically these themes that I had chosen throughout these 5 years really were the path of healing and growth. And I didn't plan it that way, but when you look at it, the themes I chose became sort of the how to grow path. And the first step is patience, because we start with fall. Fall is when change happens. Fall is when things, become different, and that's when we need the most patience. So I want to first identify what do we mean by patience, because a lot of definitions say that patience means waiting. And yes, patience does mean waiting in some sense, but it does not only mean waiting. And really, patience isn't waiting. It's really about hard work. So if you think patience is sitting around hoping something great's going to happen, or, waiting for the thing that you don't like to be over and done with, that's not patience at all. It's actually a lot of work, more work than most of us realize. And so I love this definition of patience. This definition says that patience is to be undisturbed by obstacles, failures, or strain. So to be undisturbed by obstacles that come our way, by our own failures as we try to get through them, and by any kind of strain that comes in life. That is patience. Don't you love that definition? I really enjoy that, because it shows me how much hard work there is, because it's really hard to be undisturbed when change comes our way, especially, whether we invite it or not, it's hard, okay? That's what we were just talking about, why is change so hard. So it means to wait, but it doesn't mean doing nothing. One of the quotes that I love about patience says that patience is waiting, but not passively waiting. That is laziness. But to keep going when the going is hard and slow, that is patience. So patience is to keep going when the going is hard and slow. It's not to wait. That is laziness, okay? But how do we keep going when the going is hard and slow? Isn't it really, really hard? It is so hard. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. How do we be patient? We know we might understand now what patience means, but how do we therefore show patience in our life and increase in patience even if we would like to? One thing I find really helpful is the model of the spiral of change. And it's really called the trans-theoretical model of change. And it was developed by a researcher, a psychologist named James Prochaska and his colleagues. And he wrote a book about it. It's called Changing for Good. If you want to look it up, you can learn a lot more about this and apply it in your life in even more ways. But this model really helps me understand change, and it helps me to be patient with myself during change. So what this model says is there are actually 6 stages of change. So right there, just think about that. Most of us think, okay, I need to make change, so I'm going to sit down, decide what I'm going to do, and do it. And that works sometimes. Sometimes that is exactly what we need. But you have to agree, I'm sure, I can see you nodding as I say this, that most of the time change is not that simple. We might try that, and we feel like we're failing, and then we get down on ourselves. And that's where we can be really impatient with ourselves, and where we have problems and think we're a failure, and we can get down on ourselves and criticize ourselves, and that's where our self-worth suffers. And just as a side note, self-worth is something we're going to keep talking about throughout all of these sessions, because it's such a core issue for almost all of us in some way or another. Learning to really value ourselves, to see our true worth and value, to embrace it, to love ourselves. That's something we're going to kind of keep as a theme. And then at the end, we're going to really touch on it a lot more. But I want you to know that it's on my radar because I know it's a big issue for most of us. So this model can help us to see that there are actually 6 stages of change and not just the 1 or 2 that we might normally think about. The first stage is called pre-contemplation. And this is the stage where I don't yet recognize that I have a problem. So a good example is an alcoholic who is at the bar with friends, drinking too much, behaving poorly, and maybe their relationships are suffering. Friends and family are saying, you have a drinking problem. You need to stop drinking so much. This is really a problem. And yet the person's not ready to admit it. Yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm fine. I can handle it. Okay, that's pre-contemplation. You know, you're hearing stuff, but you're not quite settled on, yeah, I've got something I need to change yet. Stage 2 is called contemplation. And this is where, okay, I get it, I have a problem. So in our example, this is where the alcoholic says, you're right, oh my gosh, I'm an alcoholic. I didn't even know that. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And we start thinking about the problem at hand and the thing that we need to change and what we're going to do to change it. We're contemplating it a bit. Okay, then that leads us to stage 3, which is preparation. Preparation is the stage where we are planning and preparing to take action, to take the steps that we need to do to make the change we need to make. And really, when you're in preparation, you're planning to take action within 30 days or less. So maybe you're taking action tomorrow or the next day or in 30 days. But a good example of this is someone trying to lose weight who's deciding on what plan for diet am I going to do? What exercise plan am I going to do? Looking and researching, figuring out what you're going to do, making your plan. And this is, we hear this all the time. I'm going to start on Monday, right? A certain person in my life says that all the time. I won't say who that is, but my husband. Anyway, I'm going to start on Monday. Monday's my day. I'm totally going to go. We hear that all the time, don't we? Well, that's a preparation stage. And then hopefully we take action. And action is stage 4. Okay, so what this means to me, first of all, is there are 3 stages before the action stage. And that shows me that most of us aren't taking enough time to really get ready to take action in our changes. Most of us think that, I have to decide I need to make a change right now and take action right now, and then that's it. But really, there's a lot more to it to prepare and make change that lasts. So stage 4 is action. That's when we actually implement our plan, when we make the change, when we work on it, and that can take a long, long time to work on it, to make the change, right? So if in our weight loss example, I'm losing weight, I'm working on it, I've lost a pound a week, eventually I meet my goal, I lose 15 pounds, okay? Now what? There's still 2 more stages after action, and this again is a lesson. We can't be finished right when we meet our goal. That's not the end of the change. That's not the end of how change works. The next stage is maintenance. Really important stage. With the weight loss goal, that's a really good example. You can't just all of a sudden lose your 15 pounds and then go back to how you used to be before you even started your diet plan, right? You have to maintain. You have to have a plan to continue to maintain your weight loss, or to continue to maintain your sobriety, or to continue to maintain your patience in your relationship, right? And then the final stage is termination. That's stage 6. Now, what the research shows is that most problems never get to termination. Most problems stay in maintenance for life. So if we're trying to be patient in our relationships, we pretty much need to maintain that for life. It's not something, for most people, it's not something that all of a sudden you become totally patient person when you weren't before and you just never have to work on it again. It's probably something you're going to have to keep maintaining for your whole life. And maybe you bite your nails and you can terminate that and you're done with it and you're never going to bite your nails again. But for most problems, most issues that we're trying to change, termination doesn't really ever come. We just kind of maintain forever. Okay, so I love that model because first of all, let me explain. This is a spiral model. So all those stages work in a spiral. So we have pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, termination. And what the research finds is that most of us cycle or recycle, what they call, in this spiral on average 6 times before we make change that lasts. That gives me hope because what it tells me is as long as we are in the cycle of change, as long as we are working it, as long as we are contemplating or preparing or maintaining or doing action or contemplating again to go back and take action again, we are making progress. And that's one important thing that we need to remember, that progress in making change isn't just the end result. In fact, sometimes our end result is not exactly what we're going to get. I mean, we think we're going to get this end result, but we're going to get something really different, but probably even better. So we have to realize that progress is being in that cycle of change, that spiral, and continuing to work it, whether you're going up or down, always being willing to try again until you make the change that lasts. I hope you find that helpful in some way. So keep that kind of in your mind as we're talking about the rest of this lesson on patience. So there are 4 ways to be patient that we're going to discuss briefly, and then I'm going to mention 8 tools that you can use for how to be more patient. Okay, so number 1, patience involves being patient with yourself and where you are. So number 1 is be patient with yourself and where you are. We did these exercises last time on seeing your strengths and weaknesses, on envisioning what you want for the future, to kind of see where you are and where you're headed, right? Well, you need to be patient with where you are. Where you are is an okay place to be. Sometimes we just fight it. We don't want to be where we are. We don't want the change that has come. We don't want to have to work harder because we are not meeting the goals that we thought we'd be meeting in the time frame that we thought we'd be meeting them. Okay, so we need to learn how to be patient with ourselves for where we are and not force ourselves to be somewhere where we're not. Okay, that's number 1. So be patient with yourself and where you are. Give yourself time and space to grow. There's a scripture in the Bible, consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. You know, they do not toil and spin and fret. So if you think about the plants outside, they do not, you know, they're not out there like, I gotta grow, I gotta hurry up and be bigger than that other tree, I gotta hurry up and, you know, reach my full potential. They just simply grow. And that's our lesson of patience, is when we're trying to grow, we want to force ourselves, we want to push ourselves harder sometimes, but we just need to be where we are and let ourselves grow at our natural pace. Number 2 is we need to be patient with our own progress. Be patient with your progress. So I just hopefully redefined progress a little bit, that it's not always what we think it is. We don't always have to have an end result to be making progress. We don't have to meet our goal to be progressing toward our goal, to be growing. So being patient with ourselves in the progress we're making, being able to see that we are in that spiral, we are working to move up and down in the spiral. Even if we're not where we wanted to be yet, we are moving. We are doing the work. We are patiently, you know, being undisturbed by the obstacles, failures, and strains in our life. That is progress. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is we need to be patient with others. Obviously, we need patience in our relationships. You know, to me, patience comes about the most in my relationship with my husband and in my relationship with my kids. I can get so impatient with them for where they are and what they're doing sometimes. And sometimes, you know, I've fallen into this trap too, but sometimes we might think, oh, I'm growing and I'm working really hard on myself, so honey, why aren't you doing the same, right? And we can be judgmental a little bit. We can expect more out of them than we really should. We need to appreciate where we are and be patient with where we are in our life and what we're doing. We also need to be patient with our loved ones for where they are and to see them for where they are and what they're doing and to love them and value them no matter where they are. So we need to exercise patience in our relationships. And some of the tools we'll talk about in a minute will help us in both our relationships and with patience with ourselves. And then number 4 is we need to have patience with our higher power. We need to trust in God. I call higher power God, or however you call or define your higher power. You have to recognize there is a higher power to life. There is a greater force than just our own will and mind. And if you've ever tried to make, big major changes, you have probably felt that gosh, I'm trying to get to this destination that I feel like is the right place to be, and yet something just keeps pushing me back and making me go this way. Well, guess what? That something is probably leading you towards something even greater. We just have to be patient. We can't always see the bigger picture that God can see, but we can patiently accept what He is helping us do in our life and where we are, and let go of the control a little bit and control what we can control ourselves and let God control His part of it. Okay? So that's number 4. So I wanted to go through 8 suggestions for how to be a little more patient, how to practice patience in your life. These are actually the chapter titles for my part 1 of my memoir, This Is How We Grow. My part 1 is called Patience. And what I did with the titles is I wrote them in sentences that tell us something we can do. Because this was my year of working on patience. I mean, my book is a memoir, so I'm telling the story of how I learned patience and some of the lessons I learned. And so these 8 things, these are my chapter titles, and we're just going to go through them. And these are also 8 things we can do to work on patience. So keep some notes on these. Number 1 is choose to grow. That's my first chapter title. And that is the first thing we've discussed. We've already talked about that. You're in this group, hopefully, because you're choosing to grow, right? But like I say, life changes can come our way in fall. We're talking about fall and a time of change, and things can happen in our life that we do or don't want to happen, and we can either go through them or we can choose to grow through them. So choosing to grow, even though you've chosen to be in this group, even though you're obviously working on your own personal growth or want to be, we choose to grow every day, and sometimes every moment of every day, in every circumstance. I can go through this or I can grow through this. Okay, that's your question. Keep that in mind. Choose to grow. That's number 1. Number 2 is live strong. And this is my chapter I wrote about my brother-in-law who had battled with skin cancer for a really long time and ended up dying. But his battle was so inspiring, and he lived strong. He was a strong, muscly guy, and he ended up withered away at the end. But his spirit was very strong, and he was just a great inspiration to all of us. So what I mean by live strong is life is hard. We've already talked about that. It's hard, and it's hard to make change, and it's hard when change comes our way that we don't want or that we do want. And it's hard when we're in, pretty much every season has its hardness to it. But we can do hard things. We can. I know that for a fact. I've learned it many times in my life. I think this is too hard, and yet somehow we can do it, especially when we turn to our higher power, when we pray, when we ask for support and strength. We will receive it, and we can do hard things. So live strong means choosing every day to live according to your best, to be the best you can be, to live strong. That's number 2. Number 3, appreciate life. And what I really say is appreciate life and those in it while you've got them. This is the chapter where I write about my little sister who died of cancer when I was 18, and then my other sister Shannon who died shortly after my brother-in-law died. And you just never know when you're going to lose the people in your life or the circumstances of your life, like your job or your home or whatever you've been blessed with. So the lesson here is to appreciate what you've got while you've got it. It's part of patience. And we're going to talk a lot more next month about gratitude. Next month we're going to talk about winter and gratitude. And in the United States, at least, it's Thanksgiving, which is our month of gratitude. So that works out really perfectly. But for now, appreciate life and what you've got while you've got it. That is a key to patience. When we look around and see the good and we look for the good, then we see so much more and we experience so much more in our life that helps us to patiently endure the things that we are going through. Number 4, ask how. I've already said I love that question, how. Sometimes we're very caught up on the whys, especially in times of fall, when things change, when people die or leave or we lose something that we really loved. We ask why? Why did this have to happen? Why does change have to be so hard? Why do I have to, not be able to be a patient person or be able to be loving as I want to be or whatever? But sometimes the why is just a distraction because it doesn't really help us do anything. It just keeps us questioning. And a lot of times the whys can never be answered in this life. And we won't ever have the answers. We sometimes just don't know why bad things happen or why hard things happen. But we can always choose to ask how. How do I get through this? How do I make the change that I'm seeking to make? How do I become the person I want to become? And if you're a praying person, prayer with the how question is a great tool to ask, how can I do these things I've been asked to do and do them patiently? Ask how, okay? Number 5, accept what is. Accept what is happening. Accept where you are right now. Now, I don't mean that you have to love it or like it or want to be there. No, it's just that you accept that this is where you are. You don't have to love being where you are to accept it. What happens is we fight with ourselves over it. I cannot accept this loss. I just can't let it go. I cannot accept that this is where I am in my life, that this has happened to me. I cannot accept that I'm this kind of person. And we fight about it so much that it causes us more and more and more distress. Instead, accept what is, let go of the fight, and sit back. And that's the key to patience, is to be able to say, I accept where I am. I accept what's happening. I don't like it, and I'm going to work to change it, but I can accept where I am right now. That is patience right there. Number 6, live in the paradox. A lot of times life gives us two opposing things, and our brain has this cognitive dissonance thing, that's what it's called, where it wants to just pick one. We don't like having two completely opposite or paradoxical things going on in life. So we tend to pick one and go with it. I wrote this chapter about how, my sister had just died and I gave birth a few weeks later, and it was death and birth just right at the same time, and you just can't make sense of that. But sometimes we just have to live in the paradox. We have to give ourselves that patience and time to let things sort out, to not have to push one thing aside and say, well, I'm not going to deal with that thing because I can't handle the paradox of this problem right now, of my life right now. Just to be where you are, accept what is, and to live in the paradox patiently until you can see what you need to do and then take your next step. Okay? Number 7, fake it till you make it. And I've actually written a blog post about this because I'm a big believer, and this has worked wonders for me. So sometimes when I'm having a really bad day and my husband comes home and I don't really want to dump on him, but I do want to dump on him, I really want to just, I'm going to lose it here. So he'll say, how are you doing? I'll be like, I'm great. Wonderful day. And it's so cheesy and fake that we both end up laughing, and he knows exactly what I mean. And I'm just trying to fake it. And there are days where, you put on a smile because you don't feel smiley inside, but sometimes putting on the smile can help the smile inside come out. So what I mean is, I don't mean be a fake person. If you think I'm into being fake, go read my blog post on getting real and how to be real in life and live authentically. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying sometimes we have to act the part until we feel the part, right? In a new job, for instance, we have to act like we know what we're doing until we really do know what we're doing. And so fake it till you make it is a great tool for patience. It helps us to choose a better way through things instead of, being grumpy and angry and frustrated about things, to just get ourselves through. Okay? And then number 8, slow down and see. I also wrote a blog post about this based on my book. We're so busy, and busyness has become almost a badge of honor in our world. But it's not. Again, look at the trees. Are they busy at all? Is nature busy at all? They're just doing what they do. We don't have to be so busy. In fact, we need to work to counteract the busyness of life because that's the world we live in. We need to slow down, listen, pay attention. And when we do so, that is when we get to really see what's happening in our life, to really understand things. That's when things start to make sense. So I'm a big believer in prayer, meditation, solitude, nature, being with family and friends and loved ones, whatever you can do to unplug, slow down a little bit, and listen, and you'll begin to see what you need in your life, and that is patience. So those are 8 things you can start with for how to have more patience, and I'm going to add a blog post on my website with 20 things you can do to be more patient, so you can check that out. But just to wrap up, I want to give us some assignments, okay? So our assignments for this month are, number 1, why is change so hard for you? Specifically, why is change so hard for you? Give that some thought, write it out, and it's really important to understand what gets in your way of change and what helps you change. If you know those things, make a list. These things, make me unable to change. When I'm too tired, when I'm too frustrated, when I'm hormonal, when I have bad people in my life that are bringing me down. Okay, and these things really help me to change and to grow. These certain people are good for me. These certain activities are good for me. These certain things help me. Okay, so make your list and keep that, because that's just going to help you to know what to look for and what to help get out of your way as you choose to grow. Number 2, I want you to think about what would patience look like for you in your life. If you were as patient as you'd like to be, what would that look like? So envision it in your mind. Envision yourself being that person that's patient just like you'd like to be. And then write it down. What do you see? Who do you want to be? So once you see it, you can, yes, that's right, be it or become it. And specifically, which areas do you need to work on to reach that goal, that vision? So which of these areas of patience? Is it patience with yourself for where you are, for what you're doing and your progress? Is it patience with your, other people? Maybe you compare yourself a lot to other people. We didn't talk about that, but that's something I meant to mention, that, we can't compare where we are with somebody else. We often compare our weakness with their strength. Be where we are. So is that one of the things you need to work on, and being patient and being patient with other people and where they are, being patient with God. Okay, so write those things down. So that's number 2. Number 3, I want you to go back and look at your list of goals that you set. And in your list of goals, what role will patience play? So we're going to look ahead. If you want to achieve these goals by the end of the year, how is patience going to be helpful for you? I guarantee patience will help every single one of us, no matter what your goals are. You just have to determine in what ways patience is going to be helpful, so that you will be hopefully more motivated to work on being a little bit more patient. Even if you're a pretty patient person to begin with, we can all improve a little bit. Okay? And then number 4, of the list of ideas that I gave, of those 8 ideas, which one really resonated with you? Which one would you like to start with? Pick 1 or 2 and practice it. Start practicing it today. And like I said, you can go to the blog post that I post with other ideas and pick a few of those, one at a time. That's part of patience. We don't have to do it all at once. Pick one thing. Then when you feel like you're good at that, pick another thing and keep on moving. Okay, so that's number 4. And also with that, what are your own ideas to improve your patience? I want you to share them with us. Go on the Facebook group, leave a comment on the blog post or on the video. Let us know your ideas. I really want to grow by learning from you too. And finally, number 5, how might that spiral of change I was talking about help you in your life? Can it help you be more patient? Can it help you through a fall or a winter or a spring or a summer? Can it help you through some of these goals that you've set? In what way will that spiral of change be helpful for you and help you choose to grow? All right, those are our assignments. And next month, we're going to be talking about winter and gratitude. And hopefully you will join us again on our Facebook group, on the comments, through emails. Keep in touch. Let us know how you're doing as you grow. Any questions that you have, let me know. And otherwise, I will see you next month for our This Is How We Grow personal growth group. Have a great one, everyone.